All right, so we're gonna do a little bit of troubleshooting a trade server failing to connect to a position server. So imagine this. It's a chaotic trading day, markets are swinging, and your trade server can't connect to the position server. For the FinTech people, you know what I'm talking about. Non-FinTech people, don't worry about position server, trade server. They're just servers, right? You don't need to know necessarily what they're doing. For the sake of this discussion, just consider them to be a type of server. But a position server is going to track your positions, how much you have of stocks or whatever it is that you're trading. And the trade server in this context is the OMS or order management server, which is the central server for the trading process connected directly to the client. So this is where the software is that they're entering the trades. And the OMS is what the client is connecting to. It's got a database, it's writing all these records, it's connected to risk. There's a risk server that is making sure the trader isn't doing anything too crazy, position server tracking what they have. So here's our scenario. The trades are stuck, risk management is on hold, and what's the business impact? That's a question you should be asking. Now there's potentially millions of dollars on the line. In this video, we're focusing on the methodology, the step-by-step process you can use to systematically troubleshoot and resolve this kind of issue. For those of you who are more into tools and utilities, stay tuned. We'll be doing a follow-up video diving deep into the best tools for network and application troubleshooting. So think stuff like Wireshark, powerful tool, TCP dump, or traceroute, Nagios, netstat, NSLOOKUP, ping, you name it. We're going to cover it all. So if that sounds interesting, let me know in the comment section below. But let's get started. Let's dive into the methodology. The first step is to identify and contextualize the problem. What exactly is happening? You're going to have to ask some probing questions from the trader in terms of what exactly are they experiencing. Don't take what they say for granted or assume that what they're saying is 100% accurate. You want to confirm what you're being told. You are the domain expert. You're the one that's supposed to know the systems. The trader is supposed to trade. You're the one doing the troubleshooting. So don't let the trader do the troubleshooting for you, right? You're going to get some information from them, but ultimately you're the boss when it comes to getting the system up and running. So you got to figure out what's really going on. So we need to scope the problem and understand its business impact. So the question is, what exactly is happening? So the trade server can't connect to the position server. So the trade server again is here, and there is the position server that is connected to. So you enter an order, goes to the OMS server. Risk server is monitoring this activity. If you buy anything, position server updates showing that you have more, or if you sell something, you have less. So it's keeping track of your positions. If you can't connect to the position server, you can't track your positions. That's a massive problem. Risk needs to know how much you've bought and sold. It needs to know your position, otherwise it can't function properly. So risk management is stuck. So we need to know what exactly is affected. Is it just one server, or is the issue more widespread? Is the issue with the risk server that it's not getting the position updates because the position server is unreachable? Or is there an issue with the risk server and the position server? Or is it actually just the risk server and not the position server? You've got to probe, you've got to theorize, you got to look at the details that you can find out using the tools available to you to figure out what you believe is really happening, right? Eliminate certain variables and try to get to a very short list of possibilities. But you have to always be considering risk. What is the scope of the problem? Is this just one trader having an issue? Is it the entire desk that trader is on, desk one? Is it these two desks? Is it the entire firm is down as a major outage? What is the scope of the problem? So we also need to ask ourselves, what is at stake? If trades aren't being processed, are P&L calculations delayed? Are risk metrics out of sync? Is compliance reporting affected, right? We know supposedly, allegedly, the position server is unreachable or you can't connect to the position server, but what is the full scope of the problem? The next thing is, we're supposed to be writing this down. So we want to know the scope of the issue system-wise and also business-wise. We want to come up with a theory, which is actually spelled a little bit differently, theory of what we think the problem is, and we want to investigate that theory. And we want to document. You got to document what's happening. Manager comes up to you, wants to know what the hell's going on, and you're just going from memory. Maybe you missed some details. Maybe there's some details that you don't have in memory or you're not aware. I don't know, right? You're finding stuff out. Who's the trader? Who called you? What exactly did the trader report? What error messages did you see? Who did you notify? I mean, you don't want to go crazy, but you want to have the most important information, most important details available on your fingertips. In general, this is kind of how you should approach things, but especially in finance, where you have millions of dollars on the line. You've got to be on point. You've got to be methodical. You've got to be precise, efficient. You just cannot be winging it in this kind of environment. The stakes are very high. So you want to document everything. You want to notify the stakeholders, which is the trading desks, DevOps, and your incident management team, because in FinTech, time is money. You got to use the ITIL processes to escalate as needed and keep everyone in the loop. So the next thing is, if it's not something you can quickly resolve, you want to escalate it. And you also want to be doing notifications, adequate or appropriate to the type of the problem, the scope. Remember, number one, the scope of the problem, how big of an issue, multiple servers down. That looks kind of scary. I would get on the phone with the NOC team pretty quickly if you have a bunch of servers that can't, well, not down, but they can't connect. You got the risk server can't connect, the OMS server can't, multiple, like this seems like it might be a big networking issue, right? Multiple servers unable to connect, right? That's a major red flag, right? So you want to notify people, right people, as soon as possible. You got to get this resolved as soon as possible. You know, maybe in your investigation, you start looking into OMS logs and you're seeing a bunch of timeouts relevant to database, queries. In the logs, in the application logs, you might see the actual queries, it's doing an insert or something like that, or it's doing a select statement or something. And then maybe based on how nice your developers are, they might have some performance metrics in the log itself indicating how long the queries are taking to come back. And you see these long numbers, or maybe it triggers, in the Python world, we have what we call try except. So basically, within the code, we look for particular areas where there might be a failure. So let's say I'm trying to do a database insert. I know there might be an issue. Maybe the database is slow. There's a connectivity issue. So I might put in there a sort of a timeout. If it takes longer than a certain amount of time, then log this error. That database is slow or something. So you look at application logs, you see something with the database. Okay, what's going on? Do I need to notify the DBA? Right? What is up with the database? You might see something that's very specific that's indicating an issue at the database itself. Maybe someone's running some, you got some new guy that you just hired and he's running some crazy query and he's just killing the database. And then you let the DBA know. They'll be able to quickly do a kind of a probe and identify, who's taking up all the resources and then yell at them, what the hell are you doing, dude? What are you doing? That's a production server. So we've got to figure it out. And then as far as notifications, so you have your management team. You have the business side, you have the technical side. So if you're on the technical side, you want to notify your technical manager. If you're not a senior member of the team, you want to notify the senior member of the team. That person might notify somebody above themselves. So the desk manager, for example, it's going to be appropriate based on whatever your rules are. Every environment has their own protocols. Follow your protocols. Then you want to notify business, right? You want to notify. So if it's just this one trader, and again, this is all relevant. Remember we said we want to look at scope, right? What you do, the actions you take, who you notify, it's all relevant to the scope of the issue, right? If we're noticing that multiple servers can't connect and multiple desks are down, now it's like, okay, we want to notify desk managers for desk 1 and 2, that kind of thing. If it's something specific to one particular desk, we want to send notifications to that desk. So we don't want to let every single trader call us up and report the same issue. Jim's gonna call, hey, I'm getting this error about the position. Oh, okay, really, we're working on it. Then Sally calls, hey, we want to, as soon as we figure this out, send an email immediately to the entire desk 1. Hey guys, looks like there's an issue with the position server. We're looking at it, blah, ETA, blah. So the desk knows, their managers know, your tech manager knows. Follow the process. So the other thing we want to do is we want to verify connectivity basics. So you want to start simple and then work your way outward. So check the trade server, right? Is it operational? Can you ping the trade server, right? So in the context of this situation, the OMS server connects to the position server, supposed to, right? The thing is, it may not be connected. It may be having issues connecting, right? So a typical, pretty standard tactic is confirm or replicate, right? I want to try to do what the OMS server should be doing and see if I can do it, right? Because if I can do it, it should be able to do it. What do we mean? I log on to the OMS server. I ping the IP address of the position server from the OMS. Relevance. If I try to ping the position server from the client and I get through, I may not get through, this is not really relevant, right? We don't care about whether the client can connect to the position server because the client doesn't connect to the position server. The OMS server does, right? This is a different path than this, right? So I want to be as close to the thing that's failing as possible. So I want to be where it is, how it is, right? So when I say how, I mean how it connects, how it tries to do whatever it's doing. I want to be doing it that way and from that location, right? Because the closer I get to, the OMS server, the more relevant my information is, right? If I can ping the position server, so I do a ping, I send out the packets out to the position server and they come right back, no problem. I verified that there is connectivity between the OMS server and position server. It is possible to connect to the position server from the OMS server. So if I can do it, why can't the OMS server? But that's a data point that I can use to figure out more information. So we want to test the network, ping the position server from the trade server. We want to use things like traceroute, right? So this is kind of an oversimplified drawing that I have here, but imagine that the two machines that you're trying to verify connectivity, that there's a lot of devices in between, right? You might have a switch here. If it's connecting to the wide area network, you're going to have a router. You got a switch connecting to a router, maybe multiple routers. You know, how many hops is it taking to get from point A to point B? And what's happening along that path? Trace route is, I think, a good way to look at it is like a submarine where you send out those pings, no pun intended, right? You know, I don't even know how to do the sound effect for that, but you get the point, right? You see the arm going like this, and then you see, you know, different things coming back. You're like, it was a bad guy, there's a missile, right? So you trace the path. Now I'm gonna do a full video again talking about the tools, and comment below. I wanna get an idea of how many people are interested in that, but we're gonna go into the tools. Here, we're really focused on the methodology, right? So you wanna use traceroute to locate where the packets are dropping, right? You wanna verify subnet configurations and routing, right? So those are the kind of things you wanna verify. So if these basics fail, it's likely a network or network hardware issue. Otherwise, you should probably move on to the application layer, right? I've logged into the OMS server. I was successfully able to ping the position server, no problems. For some reason, the application logs keep showing this error, right? Was there a recent update, a recent patch or deployment of some sort, and part of that update affected the OMS configuration? And it's part of, let's say there's a JSON file that's got all these IP addresses, and it has the old position server IP address, right? So the OMS can connect to the position server if it wants to, but it's connected to an old IP address, right? That IP address is for a device that doesn't exist anymore, so that's why it's failing, right? You got to really think outside the box, and you really have to know your systems, and you have to be very methodical going through the process, right? Because simply looking at the OMS, unable to connect to the position server, and then you ping it, and then you can connect to it, and then you're just kind of like, okay, what do I do? One of the next questions you want to ask yourself is the OMS server trying to connect in the correct way? And a key element in establishing a network connection is the addressing, right? The IP address, the port, right? What's the IP address and port that you're trying to connect on? So is it doing it correctly? There's also authentication issues. There could be an authentication issue, a lot of different factors. First of all, it helps to really know your system, right? In FinTech, you're gonna be working a lot with proprietary systems, so you've gotta learn the system of whatever investment bank or brokerage you're working at. And then you gotta follow the procedures, right? The basic troubleshooting procedures and troubleshooting techniques. So now that the basic connectivity checks are done, let's look at the application layer. So like I said, there could be an authentication issue, right? Is a trade server authorized to connect to the position server? I could use tools like netstat, because if the OMS server is supposed to connect to the position server on port 70 or what, I'm just gonna make a random port, is that port up and listening, right? And it's connecting to the port of one of these machines. So the active machines can't connect because the old server, somebody screwed up, obviously. Let's make that clear. Obviously somebody screwed up. But these things happen, right? So you got an old device that's connecting to something it shouldn't. So it's hogging the port. So it's blocking. Like, how would you know this without using a tool like netstat to see the port status, right? Because you can look at OMS, you can ping fine. OMS configuration is good. It's indicating the correct IP address, right? What's happening, right? Somewhere in some log, there should be a clue about a port issue, right? Somewhere in an OMS log, it should say something, depending on how nice your developers are, right? There should be something in there that says something about a port issue, port unavailable or something, right? That'll be nice. But even if it's not in there, you should be able to just through methodical troubleshooting procedures, as you're stepping through and eliminating, you're checking off, it's not that, it's not that. Okay, what about this port? And a quick test is just do a telnet to the port and IP, right? Instead of just pinging, okay, it's available. Okay, that's nice. But can I make an actual connection with the port? Sending some packets and seeing how long they take to come back. I mean, okay, it's useful to some degree, but you know, this is a big deal. This is, you know, millions of dollars on the line, massive risk. We've got to get this resolved. We can't just ping it and like, okay, connect. God, what does that mean, right? Traceroute to see the full path. You know, all the hops, what's happening? What's the performance of each hop, how long it takes, right? And again, I don't want to know just whether I can connect to the position server. Can I connect to the port and the IP? So we're looking for things like timeouts, drop packets. We want to analyze the logs for, you know, timeout errors or retransmissions. You're going to use packet capture tools like TCP dump or Wireshark to identify where the communication is breaking down. I remember one time I was working for an EMS vendor, it was an execution management system as opposed to order management system. And man, we had an issue that was plaguing us for months. I think one of our top traders, his system kept crashing, and we were doing all these crash dumps all the time, and we were running Wireshark, and I mean, it got really insane. Ended up being middleware. We'll talk more about that in my full system architecture video that I'm working on. It is a massive undertaking. It's a lot, but let's just say middleware is consider that the veins of this organism, the electronic trading system. So all these connections, this is high-end stuff here, right? So we're not just going to just simply make these basic TCP/IP connections. We want to have high-performance connectivity model or medium, and that's middleware. The way that all these elements, all these pieces of the puzzle, the way they all connect, managed by something called middleware. And since it's so crucial because all these different connections, and it's much more than this, what you're seeing here, right? You have fixed engine, smart order router, so much more. So if your middleware fails, big deal, right? So if you isolate the problem, then you want to apply some kind of fix, and then you want to retest, right? So we assess the configuration issue, update the configuration, put the new IP address in there, and then reinitiate the OMS. There's usually, if it's a Unix environment, there's like a cron job for how you start the OMS in the morning. So you can initiate that cron job to do sort of a reinitialization of your OMS to see if it'll connect. A critical thing about that, whenever you're running cron jobs in the middle of the day, starting something out of sequence, right? This cron job is scheduled for 7 a.m. every morning. It's now 9 a.m. You're running a 7 a.m. job at 9 a.m. You want to be very clear that is okay, right? Trading is there's a process in terms of, this server starts at that time, and there's a whole procedure, order of operations. And if you do something out of sequence, you can cause massive problems. So make sure that you're sure that it's okay to restart the OMS. There might be a modification to what's in the cron job. So because you're doing an intraday restart, like there could be an actual intraday restart process. That'd be nice if somebody did that, right? You have a bash script that does a modification that takes into account that it's the middle of the day, so you don't restart something. Maybe when you restart the OMS, it reloads positions, and then you reload position middle of the day. Now you got double executions, and who knows what happens, right? So be very careful, guys. Maybe one day I will save you from losing your job. So anyway, that's what I'm here for, help you guys out. So step 4, we want to look at the business impact, right? Business impact, escalation. If you're unable to resolve the issue, you want to quickly escalate. You want to get an assessment like we said before, talk about the scope of it. You want to notify senior management. We talked about that before, the business guys, the tech guys. You want to notify, again, talked about alerting the trading desk, right? We covered that already. You have the technical escalation. So not just on a management level, but you might need to notify the NOC, network operations guys. If you establish it's a big networking issue that's outside of your purview, if you're a trade systems guy, yes, because of the sort of the stakes that we're dealing with, if you're a trade guy, you want to be really high level on as much as you can, right? You want to be able to do high level network troubleshooting, database troubleshooting, you name it, right? But ultimately, you need to be ready to quickly escalate as necessary when it gets to that point, right? You have to know what you know your realm, know your capabilities, and have good judgment to know when is the right time to escalate to the network operations team. And then when you do that, you don't just hand it over to them and give up. Well, it depends on what your role is, right? If you're like an application support guy, application support engineering, you want to stay on top of it, man. You have a theory about what's happening with the network. As a senior application support engineer, you should be able to come up with theories sometimes and hand it over to NOC. So you might just be heading them in the right direction and save them a lot of time so they could jump in and bang, as opposed to, I don't know, it looks like the network's down. You know what I mean? But ultimately, that's their domain, right? You're only going to go so far before involving them. I'm not saying you stop. Again, you can continue. It's not about going far. It's about going far before noticing the domain experts, right? You're the trading systems master, but the network guys, they're the network master. So notify them as soon as is prudent. So you want to engage with network engineers. If packet captures or trace routes are showing issues, like I look at a trace route and I see, good hop, and then I see timeouts here, or maybe it doesn't time out, but I see a lot of latency here, right? It's spending a lot of time on the third hop. What's up with this router, right? What's up with that router? Is there an issue there? And that's the kind of stuff that, as a senior, when you start out, you're more junior, you don't get to that level, you're quicker to say, you should be going to a senior guy and say, hey man, I don't know what's going on. But as a senior guy, you should be able to potentially figure this stuff out. Like, hey man, look through this, ping that, trace route, okay, hop, lays, okay, boom, knock, hey knock, router at IP address, blah, is really slow, traders are saying slow performance, can you take a look, right? You're giving them a specific, theory and a specific point of failure. And this is pretty clear. Right? If you see crazy times right there, that is not good. Not saying that is the issue, but it's very likely close to why you're having a problem that you're having. So by you identifying that and being able to tell NOC, like, hey guys, boom, you are just helping the team overall, deliver the best service, which is what you want to do. You want to minimize downtime. So, get the issue resolved as soon as possible. So saving the NOC time. And again, you got to know your realm. Don't slow things down by spending too much time investigating all this network stuff. Go through it very quickly, right? Be at a level where, from watching my videos, where you can do a lot of investigation on your own and do it very quickly, so that you're not sitting there dragging, and then by the time you notify knock, like, you wasted a ton of time. It's got to be bang, oh, what's this? Hey, knock, what's going on? Right? It's got to be quick. You got to be on the ball. And if you're not sure, let's say you try to go this route and you're like, oh, I'm not sure, is it traceroute? Don't do that, man. If you're stumbling around, I mean, it's good that you try, but if you're stumbling around and the clock is ticking, boom, hey, knock, can you look at this with me? I'm trying to do this. Maybe they can assist you. Hey, I got a theory. I think something's wrong with one of the routers, but I forgot the command. What's an option? Sometimes I'll do that. I'll call them up and I'll say, hey, man, I'm trying to do this and I don't know what the command is. And they'll tell me the command. Oh, look, I just confirmed this. It's this router. Can you take a look? Or maybe it's something relevant to something that I can deal with, configuration issue, right? So that's the way we got to look at it. So a lot of times, I'll work a lot with development, right? Depending on the issue. So it's an issue. So something's funky with the OMS, the configuration is good. You can ping it. There's some strange error message. You don't know what the error message means, right? You've gone through the basics. What does this error message mean? I don't have anywhere else to go. I've looked at all the basic stuff. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what, BFG access 9-3 means, right? So I'm going to contact the developers, right? So the application logs are suggesting that there's a bug or some database issue or something like that, and it's something ambiguous. We'll ask the developer. They're the ones who put those errors in there, right? They should be able to tell you what the errors mean if it's something that you can't figure out on your own. Sometimes it's self-explanatory. It says host unreachable. Okay, it's not like networking. Let me do my networking troubleshooting, right? But you always want to use the ITIL practices to maintain the structural communications and track the progress, right? So the final step is, the final step is hopefully resolve the issue, right? So we want to resolve and verify. So let's say it's a configuration issue. We updated the configuration. We reinitiated the OMS, and now we're looking at the logs. Everything looks good. It says success. Maybe you coordinate with development. Say when you restart it, make sure you're checking the logs. It should say success on port 101 or whatever it is, right? So you check the logs. You go in there. You look at it. Okay, I see success, whatever. Okay, position server is good. I see it's in green. I go to the trader. Hey, can you take a look? What do you see? I see OMS green. Can you take a look at your positions? I see my positions are there. Great. Can you check with your teammates, right? Traders next to you. Anybody else are they good? Everyone positions are good? Okay, right? Resolve and verify, right? Once the root cause is identified, you want to implement the fix, right? So for network issues, you want to update routes or fix misconfigurations or replace faulty hardware. That would be knock, right? Obviously. For authentication issues, you want to reset credentials or update API keys. Something that happens sometimes. Maybe somebody forgot, the API key expired. There was probably a warning and someone missed the email, right? You got to go do it, right? Or fix the certificate issues, something that does come up in production as well. A lot of these problems are problems that could be mitigated. A lot of times it's somebody did mess up, somebody didn't follow a procedure, somebody missed an email. Either way, we got to get resolved and get the system up and running as soon as possible. So for application errors, you might want to restart services. Development might give you a patch. Sometimes they'll do a quick patch depending on what the issue is, and you might do a quick intraday deployment of that new patch, restart, whatever. They'll usually give you the procedure of how to deploy the patch, how to restart the process, so you do it in a safe way. And after you apply the fix, you want to verify that the trade server can connect to the position server, right? Resolve and verify, right? Check if the trades are processing. You want to validate with the end users, like we said, and make sure everything is back to normal, right? And then, like I said, this is actually not the end. You want to document, right? I mean, there should be some level of documentation that you're doing throughout this process, like we said, but the real meat, the novel, should be done at the end. A full report, right? What exactly happened here? Depending on your position in the company, you might need to present a report, sort of an after action report or something, to the business managers, to the tech managers, so they know exactly what happened, why it happened, what you did to resolve it, and what you did to prevent it from happening again. That's a critical thing. We want to learn from our mistakes. I'm glad you fixed it, but where did we mess up? And how can we avoid making that mistake again, right? So don't skip this crucial step, right? Document the incident, what happened, how you fixed it, and make sure that it doesn't happen again, right? So you set up things like, depending on what the issue is, of course, proactive monitoring. You can use tools like Diagnose is very powerful to a fault. It can be a little bit complicated sometimes, depending on what you're trying to do, but it's a great tool for monitoring. You have Agios, Prometheus, you name it, whatever it is you guys are using. You want to conduct a retrospective, what am I thinking? A retrospective, so in terms of, what worked, right? What worked, what didn't? How can the process improve the next time, right? How can you be better the next time? This not only helps the team, but it builds confidence throughout the organization. Business guys like to have a good report where, I mean, they like for it not to break in the first place. And if it does break, they like if you can fix it very quickly. That's what they really like. But beyond that, they like that, hey man, you've taken steps to prevent it from happening again. And, you know, it looks pretty thorough what you've done. Like, you're taking it seriously. You understand the urgency. They really respect and appreciate that, right? So this video really focused on the methodology of troubleshooting a critical FinTech issue. But in the next video, we're going to dive into the tools, like I said, Wireshark, Netstat, NSLookup, Ping, traceroute, you name it. We're gonna do it all, right? So we're gonna go over those advanced tools. There's also Dynatrace. I mean, there's so much good stuff, man. So, you know, let me know your comments and thoughts on that. And if you're excited for that, drop a comment below and let me know which tool you want us to cover first. And don't forget to subscribe for more FinTech troubleshooting tips. See you in the next one. This is Carlisle Speaks Wall Street, your FinTech blueprint.